welcome to the LFCTR Transfer Room. I'm Jack, joined today by Chedu, Matt, and Anthony. It's Derby Day before the Everton match. Guys, some pre-match coverage. An unchanged Liverpool 11 compared to the match against Leipzig. It's going to be a good one. Matt, I'll start with you. Before the match, I asked if this is your first stream, by the way, so welcome.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
You said you were nervous. Thought it was about the stream. It was actually about the match. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm nervous. I love being able to shout 1999 to Evertonians, and I don't want to lose that privilege. But based on recent home performances, we've been better away, if anything. Obviously, results have picked up. I'm a lot more optimistic after the midweek game than I would have been. We were very good against Leipzig, but this is a very different task, particularly for people like Kabak. Never played in the derby before. It's going to be very rough for him. Young lad, new to the league. It's going to be a really tough game for him. But Everton are missing players as well, so fingers crossed we should be okay. But there's always going to be nerves when there's a game this big, especially with our run of form of late, really. But hopefully, between now and the end of the season, this can be the start of really picking things up and showing people what we're about. And this talk of bad champions and all that Roy Keane keeps spouting, it can just be put in the mud, basically.
Exactly. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on the lineups, how you're feeling ahead of the match, whether from Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're coming from. Let's talk about the lineups a little bit. It is unchanged. It'll be scrolling on the bottom here now. Chedu, for you, how are you feeling about the decision by Klopp? Keita in the squad, not in the 11, obviously, to have the same squad as Leipzig.
Well, I mean, first of all, with Naby, it's never been a thing of as soon as you come back from injury, we're gonna put you right away into the starting 11, because that would be a very bad move, especially for someone like Naby, who's been quite injury prone recently. Happy for him to be back. I think the lineup is just perfect as is. I honestly couldn't see Davis coming in either. I don't know when they're gonna think he's ready to play. But for now, I think, as Matt said, we played fantastically against Leipzig, and don't fix what's not broken.
Yeah, Anthony, I'll bring you in as well. Your thoughts as well on the fact that they're maintaining that same 11. Is this the right lineup for a match like this derby? I don't believe Anthony can hear me, because I cannot hear Anthony.
Yeah, connection problems.
We've been dealing with connection problems with Anthony all morning. For me,
yeah.
Anthony, we'll get back to you when your wife is a bit better, but let's talk about as if we lose Anthony there. Let's talk about the Everton lineup. Right before we went on, Matt, you said the classic Everton, the 5-4-1. It is the back five, and Rodriguez was listed kind of as a forward in the way they released the lineup. But how do you feel about the way that they're going to be showing up at Anfield?
They know sort of the antidote to the way we play. They know that if they sit deep, they wait for their chances, they counter and exploit the spaces. That gives them the best chance of a result, really. I think we all know if Everton came to Anfield and tried to, play expansive football, it's not going to work out for them. It's that simple. So I'm not surprised by it. Obviously, with the sort of options they've got to their disposal, it's probably bar Calvert-Lewin, and I think they're missing someone else as well. But other than that, it's a pretty strong 11. But they've got Jordan Pickford in goal, so anything can happen. His little arms can't reach everything. And yeah, people like Seamus Coleman, he's an old man. He's there to be run at. I don't think it's a particularly scary lineup. So yeah, we know what they're like. They're terrible with set pieces, but they can counter. They've got a great manager. No one's denying that, and this is definitely their best chance of a result at Anfield in a very long time. They're at the peak as far as they're concerned for the last 10, 15 years probably. So there's definitely worries there, but it's still a team we should be beating. But they are going to set up to frustrate us. It's going to be a rough game, similar to the one at Goodison Park. And our lads just have to, match it. We have to match them in terms of desire. We have to match them in terms of aggression. We have to beat them in terms of quality, which we are obviously clearly capable of doing. It's going to be an interesting game, and hopefully, if we can get an early goal that'll really set the tone because it will force them to sort of, come out of that sort of block. Whereas on the flip side, if we concede an early goal, it's going to be a really, really uphill task with the way they've set up formation-wise and so on. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And I think the first 20, 30 minutes are going to be some of the most important in the match.
I agree with that. It has been a big issue for Liverpool. If this, compared to last season, if they concede first, not able to have that same mentality. Keita back, one of my favorite players. Chedu, you mentioned him a bit more on, do you want to see him feature today?
No, that's a tough question because part of me really, really wants to see him back. He's a fantastic midfielder, and he's got that good chemistry with Salah as well. They seem to help each other with assists all the time. But on the other hand, I kind of don't want to risk him just yet. Let him rest a little bit more. But honestly, due to the fact, what other midfielders do we have on the bench that can come in, if anything? So the question would be: would Klopp rather, if there has to be a change in midfield, would Klopp rather bring Davies in and move Henderson to midfield, or bring Naby? I think out of the two, he'll probably bring Naby in. But would that be the right decision? We will have to see. I would love to see him, but I don't think he should be risked either.
Shaqiri, another guy that could have potentially featured, decided not to as well. Anthony, hoping your wife is a bit better. Keita, Liverpool lineup, how are you feeling about
it? What did you say? Sorry, Mark, connected.
No, you're good. Keita in the Liverpool lineup. What were your thoughts on the unchanged 11 and Keita?
He's the one player I couldn't wait to come back. Jota actually, but he offers that extra bit of creativity we've been missing recently. Hopefully, comes off the bench. But yeah, him in the midfield is probably. I actually think he's our best midfielder, except for Thiago. But yeah, more optimistic about this match than I was with him out of the squad.
I agree with that, actually. I think talent-wise, Keita is up there with almost any midfielder in the Premier League. It's just you need to be on the football pitch in order to show that you're a good footballer, and he has not been able to do that. In terms of the Everton lineup, Matt, you hit on it a little bit about where they're going to try and sit back in the blocks. So no Calvert-Lewin. Him and Allen still on the bench, not risking them for this match after their injuries recently. What kind of risk could this Everton lineup pose against a Kabak, as you mentioned, and Henderson center-back duo? What kind of threat will Richarlison and Rodriguez pose for them?
Richarlison, in the same sense that Calvert-Lewin can. He can be a bully if he needs to be. And I think that's what he's going to be there to do, essentially, today. Obviously, it's the clear, simple tactic for any team. If you've got a player like Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin who can do the dirty work up top as well as, whatever else they're capable of doing. With Henderson and Kabak, you've got, obviously, a midfielder in Henderson. And then Kabak, who's a young lad who's new to the league. It's going, like I said before, it's going to be such a different task to midweek for Kabak. Going from playing a false 9, Danny Olmo, to facing Richarlison in number 9 is going to be a very, very different task. So, yeah, there's going to be sort of bullying. I'm expecting sort of Rodriguez to be around him, sort of, trying to pick up the scraps, hitting the ball along to Richarlison and then looking for that spacing behind once the ball's been won, if they're capable of it. We all know that Henderson isn't, lightning quick. We saw a couple of times against Leipzig, he is susceptible to a ball in behind. And I think, that's probably the way Everton are going to go about it. They're going to aim for the target man. And then try and play off from there and sort of go with whatever scraps they can, as well as obviously also exploiting us on the counter as well. Thankfully, they haven't got too much pace, so the counter-attack isn't nearly as much of a threat as it is usually, but still the quality of delivery from players like Digne is going to be a massive, massive threat. Again, with sort of a young lad and a centre midfielder as your centre-backs, we could be susceptible to set pieces and stuff. So James and Digne's delivery could be huge for them, especially with a player like Richarlison who can, get up, win headers, score goals in that sense. So it's going to be a real test for the defence today. And I think that's where the game could be won and lost. Obviously, we do need we do need to pick up going forward as well. Obviously, we were much better against Leipzig, but we are still lacking a bit of creativity. Our goals did come from 2 defensive mistakes, which is good. It's what we force, and it's what we've not been forcing as much as we should be. But hopefully, with the signs from Wednesday, that the front three can do their job, and then it's just over to the back line to do theirs, really.
Yeah, I want to hit on this comment from Black Hammer. It's said in jest mostly, but it is definitely going to be on the back of some players' minds that both Thiago and Van Dijk were out for months. Van Dijk's still out after that challenge from Pickford, and Richarlison's red card tackle on Thiago had him out for several months and really kind of did put a stunt in his Liverpool career. So, Chedu, how much of an impact is that both the normal heat of a derby as well as the fact that 2 of your best players were injured in the last one? How much is that going to play in today's festivities?
Well, I mean, I actually think that it's not going to be like for the players themselves. It's really not going to be that big of a deal, I think, because I mean injuries happen whenever. The derby, of course, is always a big, it's a big game. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest game for a team, especially a team like Liverpool. But for the fans themselves, this game is going to matter even more because, again, you're playing against 2 players that took out probably 2 of the top 5 Liverpool players right now. So it's like the stakes are a little bit higher. Pride has been hurt because, I mean, let's be honest, had Van Dijk never gotten injured, we would have destroyed Everton in that game. They wouldn't have scored those 2 goals. So, the players will definitely be disappointed because, again, the injuries and the VAR decisions that went against us. They'll want to get their revenge on Everton, but I think the fact that they were the ones who injured our players is going to affect the fans a lot more, and it's going to that fire that the fans already have over this game, it's going to be tripled because just like Black Hammer said, that's exactly what the fans want. So yeah,
Richarlison is definitely one of those players that is very easy to hate and is hated by a lot of fans. Anthony, I also want your take on how this is going to be, because we have this other comment. The other 2 goals of the match is to break both of Richarlison's legs, and a win might be a bonus. How do you feel that it's going to? I do agree with Chedu in that it will or will not have an impact on the match. Anthony, I'm not sure if you heard me, but if you can, I want to hear Anthony's take on this, but his Wi-Fi is.
You can do it, Anthony.
His Wi-Fi is tearing us apart.
Oh, what was the question? Sorry, my connection.
No, you're good. The impact of the last match and how it will impact today, the emotions and the loss of the injuries of the last match, will that impact today?
Well, okay, I agree with Chedu. I don't think the players are going to have in the back of their minds, let's injure these players straight away, or let's try our best to get a red card. So they shouldn't play too much into it. Obviously, the fact that it's a derby, there's going to be more rough challenges than like the normal match. But the professionals shouldn't really lay it to them. But I would love to see Pickford getting injured. So yeah, that's my take on it.
That is another take. Very, very much in agreement with you, Anthony, and that. And Matt, it is definitely going to have a big impact today. I want your take as well on the mentality both of the players and the fans, because it's just the general rivalry that exists between Everton and Liverpool.
Yeah, well, it's all part and parcel of the derby, really, isn't it? We know we've got to go in and match their aggression. We know they're going to come into this fixture aggressive. It's not a new thing. It's something that's been going on for years. And even the days of Steven Gerrard, how many horrendous tackles did he put in against these lot? It's just part of the fixture. The rough tackles, the aggression, the sort of low-key dirtiness of the game. It's part and parcel of a Merseyside derby, and obviously with us sort of being the Evertonians aren't going to like it, but we are technically the better team. What they've got to do is try and bring us down a peg, and that's what they will do. They will try and get in our players' heads, and that's exactly what happened at Goodison Park. They went into that game knowing they need to get in our heads. They need to go in on us rough. They need to be hard, and they're going to do it again today. And we need to match that aggression, but we also need to make sure we don't lose our heads. We need to make sure that we don't let ourselves stoop to the level of the Richarlison tackles, the Pickford tackles, which are blatant. They're not football tackles; they're derby tackles. They're tackles that are there to hurt someone more than anything. And the afterthought is hopefully you don't get sent off, which obviously Pickford won that battle. Richarlison didn't last time around. And it's going to be the same again. There's going to be some horrendous tackles today. There's going to be some sniding, standing on the odd foot, pulling the shirt, cynical fouls. It's all part of what you get every time us two play each other. And we've just got to make sure we keep our heads and end of the day, as long as we can remain the better team on the pitch and not let it take over the game and not let it dictate the game, then we should be okay. Obviously, it's going to be in the back of a lot of players' minds, but they can't let that affect the game. They can't let, the fact that an Everton player could come flying into their knee any second affect them. They've just got to get on with the game, and hopefully the officials have a good day, and hopefully no one gets hurt like they did in the last game, really. But we can't let sort of the aggression of the game get into our heads and divert away from the performance that we need to put in. We need to make a statement today, and we need to show them who the real team in Liverpool is, and it's definitely not them.
I like this comment. Anthony's Wi-Fi is like our title aspirations, non-existent. I hope Anthony, his Wi-Fi lets him react to that, because it is a very nice comment. No, I agree with you on that. The last match against Leipzig felt like something did change. There had been the tweet from Mohamed Salah a few days earlier. There had been just a general reaction after the defeat to Leicester that, okay, now we need to kick it into gear. And it did feel like the Leipzig match was a turning point, but you have to match that with another good performance here today. And so let's talk a bit about Everton. So we had 2 goals from Salah and Mane against Leipzig. They are playing the back 5. Chedu, how do you feel that the defensive structure with T-Rex, Arms, Pickford, and net, how is that going to fare against Liverpool's front 3, which at times this year has been back and forth in the form charts? How are they going to fare today?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, at this point in the season, almost every single team knows exactly how to defend against us, and a back 5 is surely going to be quite effective against our front 3. It's a really good example of what happens when you have to go out and win. Like, for example, the Leipzig game, where it's Leipzig have to win. They're playing only 2 games, and they have to attack. It's not like they have the option to sit back and attack us and to counterattack us. They'll just get destroyed. And they're way more vulnerable in the back because of that. But Everton don't really need to go out and win. They've already beaten their expectations for the season. And I do get that they probably do want European football, looking at how well they've done this season. But in reality, when you're playing a team against Liverpool, yes, we've been in a really, really bad run of games, but there's still quality in the team. Like, form's temporal, class is permanent. So they'll probably play more defensively. They'll play like almost every single bottom of the table team they've played against us, probably, where they just wait for us to do something wrong, then hit us hard with the counterattack. And the fact that they don't have Allen, Allen is a fantastic midfielder, or Calvert-Lewin, who, how many goals has he scored so far? Does anyone know? Because I actually don't. But 2 fantastic players missing. If they go out and attack like they want to win the game, it's not going to work that well for them. So a back 5 is definitely the best move for them defensively. For us, it's just we'll have to somehow try and break it down. I know that Pickford is really bad. He's decent to bad goalkeeper. But we still have 5 players to get past. That's if the midfield doesn't also drop back whenever we attack. So it's gonna be a tough one. I'll be surprised if my prediction would be a 2-1 win. But even if we score 2 goals, I'd be surprised, honestly, because it is going to be tough.
I was going to throw the next one to Anthony, but I think he's having trouble hearing us. So,
yeah,
Matt, I'll bring you in on this. Obviously, earlier today, Southampton and Chelsea drew 1-1, as we just lost Anthony. What a shame there. But Takumi Minamino scoring the goal there to have the 1-1 draw. So they are a top 4 rival for Liverpool. Liverpool could go level with them on points and pass them on goal difference if they're able to score 2 or more goals. Is this match a must-win in terms of the top 4 aspirations for Liverpool?
I wouldn't say in terms of the top 4 aspirations. I think there's still a long way to go this season. I think any sort of panicking over top 4, we don't need to worry about it too much just yet. If we're in a similar position in a month's time, then it's maybe a bit different. But at the minute, it's sort of, we just need to, grind away and just similarly, we were good against Leicester, but we dropped the points, and we just need to make sure we're putting in that level of performance. But if we don't get the result today, it's not gonna, have a detrimental impact on the season. I don't think. I think we should win. And I think, obviously, if we do win, it'll be of massive importance for the season going forward. But the teams that are around us, I can't see it. Everyone's dropping points this season, bar Man City. Absolutely everyone. I think that sort of cluster of us all, sort of from second to 6th, 7th, whatever. I think it could literally be any that get in and miss out. And it's all about form between now and the end of the season. So as important as this game is, it's not detrimental in terms of the bigger picture, so to speak. Today, we've got to accept it's going to be a very different test to the last 2 games. Everton aren't going to play around at the back. They're not going to try and play expansive football in the way that Leicester can, and obviously Leipzig did. For Leipzig, it was their downfall. So if anything, it was an advert to why not to play that kind of football against us. We've been susceptible to dropping points so often, and the more teams that play against us like that, to be honest, it's the better for us. The only game where we've really been outclassed in terms of a team that sort of matches in terms of the approach to the game is Man City. Other than that, United sat back, countered. Obviously your Burnleys, your Brightons, all those results we dropped. So we just need to, we do need to find some momentum, and this game is key for that. But it's definitely not too late to sort of be worrying about top 4. I think with the quality in the squad, with the players coming back, we've got Jota coming back soon. Fabinho won't be too far away. We'll be able to obviously introduce Ben Davies to the team, which will free up Jordan Henderson for the midfield. And we'll be in a much better place in, say, 3 weeks' time than we are now. Just in a similar vein, we're in a much better position now than we were 3 weeks ago in terms of the starting lineups we were having to play, and in terms of the bench as well. Recently, looking at the subs bench, there's been nothing. There's been absolutely nothing. But today we've got Naby Keita on there. Origi and Oxlade-Chamberlain really haven't done anything off the bench recently. So getting the likes of Jota back in the squad, Fabinho, it gives us so much more options. And going forward in the season, as long as you can keep these players fit, then we should be okay. So I'm not worried too much in terms of the top 4 aspirations. But on the other hand, it is a must-win because it's a derby, and we can't let them have any bragging rights and can't give them anything to sort of, feed off. And we just need to put them in their place. We need to make a statement today, and that's what it's more about. It's about showing the rest of the league what we're made of and what we can do, which we haven't shown sort of since the turn of the new year.
Yeah, I wanted to hit on this comment about taking a shot from distance because there was a match against Everton. I'm not sure if it was in 2020 or 2019 when Curtis Jones scored the winner in the FA Cup. I believe it was about a year ago. Around this time. Yeah. And I was going to hit on all right. That's good. I was going to hit on Jones, and then Matty, the biggest Curtis Jones fanboy that exists, opted in and said Jones masterclass is pending. So, Chedu, I wanted to ask you, will we see a goal from Curtis Jones today?
No. I don't expect him to score. An assist I can see. An assist I can see, but no, I don't think a goal will come. If it comes, I'm gonna be really happy. I absolutely love Curtis, but no, I think if anyone's gonna score in this, listen, Salah's gonna score. I think that's about it. I think the best we're gonna see is Curtis assisting Salah, but him scoring himself, nah, I don't see it. I mean, maybe because he likes shooting from outside the box, and as Black Hammer said, that's something that we should try to do. We need to be less predictable, because every single game it's just cross, and hope that something actually works. So taking shots from distance, especially from someone like Curtis who can't actually do that, or even Naby. Even if Naby comes on, he's also good at doing that. Those kind of shots could be a key factor as to us winning, and I'd honestly love Curtis to score. I mean, you know what? Just for the sake of making Matty happy, I'll say he's gonna score a hat trick.
Oh yeah, Matt, your thoughts on kind of the midfield as well in general, because it's been lackluster. All of last year, there were 36 goal contributions from midfield players for Liverpool. Compare that to just 6 this season in the Premier League. So do you think that Jones, again, as I asked Chedu, has a chance to score, and how important is that area of the field going to be for Liverpool to get a result today?
In terms of goal contributions, Curtis is definitely our biggest threat, 100%. I have no doubt that he's going to make Tom Davies look like the championship player he is. Scout Sedan's going to do a madness, hopefully. But we know from seeing him coming through the youth teams, he's a player who can contribute goals. He can set up goals. He has the ability to put 4 players down on the floor. He does offer that something different that we sometimes do lack. And I think he's growing into his game more and more. He's getting more and more confident. The way he glides with the ball and twists and turns, especially for someone of his height, his agility is so impressive. And I think with a team playing like Everton do today, his unpredictability is going to be huge. Likewise with Thiago, slightly sort of different effect Thiago has. It's more sort of as an orchestrator rather than sort of being that deadly punch. But the speed that Thiago can move the ball, the creativity that Jones does possess, I think the midfield could be key today. Obviously, Gini's just going to be there cleaning up everything as he does. We know now not to expect too much from Gini going forward. The Gini of his national team performances definitely isn't the Gini of his Liverpool performances, especially of late. Most of his goals do come from headers, runs into the box, which he's not been doing. He's sort of been playing that sitting role. We can't expect too much on the goal contribution from him. But I love Curtis Jones. I'm really, really impressed with the way he's sort of come along in this past year. From about 18 months ago, he was just quietly, making his moves in the academy. He was occasionally, featuring in the odd cup competition. Then the game against these lot, he burst to life, and he's not looked back since. And in certain games, he has been the difference. And in midweek, he was one of the best players on the pitch. And that confidence is only going to carry him through into today. And hopefully, he can really make these Evertonians look stupid, because he has the ability to. And if he sets his mind to it, he will run the show today, in my opinion, because he's been absolutely brilliant recently.
Yeah, you also hit on Thiago, a guy I wanted to talk a bit about in the last few minutes of our broadcast. There's been a lot of talk about his first few months at Liverpool, about how he has not been at the same level as he was at Bayern, and he hasn't been at his best level. And there's been a lot of back and forth on has he flopped? Has he been poor? I want your take on Thiago, because I think this Everton match several months ago, which was that his starting debut? I forget. It was phenomenal.
It was his first start.
Yes.
He come on against Chelsea before the Everton game, and I think it was half time, and he was incredible. Likewise against Everton, and he's not played with the strongest 11 since. I think a lot of people. I think it's so easy to forget that he's not played with arguably our 2 other best midfielders in terms of our strongest squads. You'd have him alongside Fabinho and Henderson probably, and he's not had that once since he's come back from his injury. He's not been able to have the luxury of Henderson and Fabinho doing the hard job for him, so he can focus on just being the magician that he is. Realistically, I think to call him a flop is just ridiculous Sky Sports nonsense. To be honest, they're just trying to create a narrative to get people clicking on their crap. It's ridiculous to call him a flop. Not only is it incredibly early into his career, he's not been half as bad as people are acting as if he's the reason for the downfall in results. And it's just crazy to me. Like when you see him play football, it's like, he's not getting assists, he's not getting goals. He's never been a player that gets assists or goals. And he's, your perfect example of not everything has to be determined by stats. You can look at someone like Calvert-Lewin, who's the stats work in his favour, and they tell the exact story of the season he's having, which is fair enough. But then you've got players like Thiago, where the stats don't create such a simple picture. really. You know, when you see him on the ball, you know, like he's one step ahead all the time. And to label him as a flop is the biggest load of rubbish I've heard in a long time. Everyone knows what an amazing player he is, but he's playing in a new team that aren't at full strength. He's missing probably the two sort of safety barriers he would have had, the foundations, that midfield to go and do what he can do. Instead, he's getting, you know, ridiculed for giving away fouls and conceding yellow cards and stuff. When that's not his job. Even when he was deployed as a defensive midfielder for Bayern, it wasn't for his defensive attributes. It's because he can literally control a game when in that area of the pitch. And when he does get, you know, the support he needs and he can really play with the best squad available, we're going to see just how good a signing Thiago was for us. And, you know, he's a great player. He's, you know, one of the top 5 midfielders in the world. But it's just typical, you know, the media in this country. They're trying to create a narrative. And I'm not buying it for a second. As much as, you know, these armchair United fans or whatever want to share it over their social medias and think, oh yeah, he's a flop. He's not a flop, and they're going to realise that when we get our strongest team playing.
Yeah, I'm free coming from Matty that Bayern, I think they'd love to have him back. Bayern's struggling a little bit in the Bundesliga, but he's a great player. And this is another great point that he needs this freedom on the pitch because he played with Joshua Kimmich at Bayern, who is one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. And that's a big deal. Thiago has never been a great defensive player. He is a orchestrator, as you mentioned, Matt. And I agree with you that I look at players like Ilkay Gundogan for Manchester City, where he was good for like a lot of years, but he wasn't great. And this year he is phenomenal because that just shows to me every player can improve. You're not forever destined to be at whatever level you currently are. So Thiago, I think none of us who are rational fans with functioning frontal lobes know that he is going to be a good guy for the future. Before we go to score predictions, I have my prediction from Anthony, who unfortunately cannot be with us because of his Wi-Fi. Chedu, your thoughts as well on this midfield situation, on Thiago, how this midfield trio is going to fare against Everton.
I mean, listen, it's honestly as easy as put Henderson and Fabinho next to Thiago, and he's going to be amazing. I mean, his first game, 45 minutes against Chelsea, Fabinho, Henderson in midfield, actual defenders at the back, got man of the match. You know, it's like the problem isn't the player himself. It's the fact that he's missing the great players around him. And he's having to play a lot more defensively because, again, we're playing Henderson in defense. Our defensive midfielder right now, it's always changing, but, you know, it's mostly Wijnaldum. So he can't be allowed to go forward too much or have that creativity because, you know, one simple counterattack through Henderson's side and they could possibly score. And that's a big problem. That's why he's been doing all of these tackles, why he's been getting all of this yellow cards, why he's been called a flop when realistically it's not true. But just you wait until Fabinho and Henderson are back in midfield and you best believe he's going back to his prime.
All right, gentlemen. Last few minutes. We're about 24 minutes from kickoff. Chedu, we'll start with you. Your score prediction for today at Anfield.
2-1 win. Salah scores 2. And I'm going to say that, you know what, James Rodriguez. I don't want to see Richarlison score, so I'll just say James Rodriguez scores for them.
Matt?
I'm going to go for 3-1. I think, weirdly, the Everton goal will be when Calvert-Lewin eventually comes off the bench. I think he, you know, as much as I hate him and them, he's been incredible this season. And I think their game plan is going to be stay in the game long enough for us to bring Calvert-Lewin off the bench. And hopefully, like, their ideal is at the hour mark, 60, 65 minutes, it's 0-0 and they bring Calvert-Lewin on. But hopefully, based on the way we played the other night, hopefully there's a lot more confidence running through the veins of the players, particularly the attackers. And hopefully we can put the game to bed early. I'm going to say 2-0 around the 60-minute mark, and then a couple of goals later on, one for Calvert-Lewin, one for whoever for us. So yeah, 3-1. I think it'll be a good game. I don't think it'll be an easy one by any stretch of the imagination. But as I said earlier, that early goal, if we can get an early goal, I think the game's ours. I think. So fingers crossed, we go out all guns blazing, and we put these toffees in their place.
Anthony, join us in the comments now. St. John's
from beyond the grave.
Beyond the grave. Rest in peace, Anthony. He said to me 3-1 is his score prediction. And since he didn't give goal scorers, I'm just going to attribute all 3 of those goals to Jones in memory of Matty as well. So a hat trick for Jones, 3-1 win. Myself, I'm oddly optimistic. I'll break from you guys. I'm going to say a win as well. I would never have the audacity to say anything other than that. But I think there's going to be a clean sheet, actually. I think this Everton attack is a bit toothless. They struggled against Fulham. They had 3 poor passes by Manchester City. So I think their confidence is a bit low. I think Liverpool control this match. I think they win 2-0. So all 4 of us picking wins for Liverpool. All 3 of us by 2 goals. So we'll hope that it's going to be a result as good as that one. But for myself, Jack, for Chedu, for Matt, this has been the LFC Transfer Room. You want to read some more, LFCTransferroom.com. Make sure to subscribe if you're from YouTube. If you're on Twitter, LFC Transfer Room on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter, YouTube as well. For the guys, we'll see you after the match, hopefully with a lot more positivity. Take care.